we do here is go back.
Hey, you guys. Hey, what's up, you guys? Thank you so much again for tuning back into my channel. This is going to be part 3. We're gonna try to do this camera, my phone, everything has been dying and not wanting me to record this video. So I rebuke the enemy and we are going to get this done tonight. So I've already done part 1 and part 2, so obviously this is going to be part 3. If you have yet to watch those, part 1 or part 2, I will make sure to leave the link, I think on this side. I don't know what side it's on. I think this one. So I'll make sure to leave it over here and over here. So make sure that you guys go ahead and pause this, watch those videos, and then come back to this one, just so everything can tie in together. If not, again, you can just watch this one, and hopefully it does give you the encouragement that you are looking for. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. I am going to talk really fast because I do not want this camera to die on me. So part 1, I did verses 41 and 42. Part 2, 43 and 44, and then part 3 we're going to be diving into verses 45 and 46. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, we are reading from Luke chapter 22, and we're going to dive into verse 45 and 46. So what I'm going to do is read 41 through 46, and then we're going to just go back and talk about just 45 and 46. So verse 41, I'm sorry y'all, I can't see, I just can't see. Alright, I'm sorry. Okay, so verse 41 says, "And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed, saying, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me, yet not my will, but always yours be done. Now an angel appeared to him from heaven, strengthening him, and being in agony, he prayed more intently, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling down on the ground." Now verse 45 and 46 says, "When he rose from prayer, he came to the disciples and found them sleeping from sorrow. And he said to them, Why are you sleeping? Get up and pray that you may not fall into temptation." So we're going to go ahead and just dive into verse 45. Verse 45 says, "And he rose up from prayer, and he came to the disciples and found them sleeping from sorrow." So I thought that this was interesting, just because, well, the first part of that verse, it says when he rose up. Okay, yeah, when he rose up from prayer. And I mentioned this in part 1, where basically Jesus basically knelt down to pray. And I thought that that was just amazing, because obviously Jesus was God's representation here on earth at that time, but he still was humble enough and still respectful enough to the source to kneel down when he prayed. So I think that that's also very intentional, and I think that it's a command from us as well, that we have to make sure that we don't allow our egos, because our circumstances are, you know, maybe we are doing very well for ourselves, and I think a lot of times when you're doing very good and things are falling into place and things are happy, a lot of times our ego can make us feel like we are the source, and so we're not really approaching the time with the source as respectful or as humble and as grateful as we need to. So I thought that this, again, saying when he rose up from prayer, I thought that that was very intentional to put that in there. So just make sure that you are very intentional about, you know, praying in general, and just the amount of time that you pray, and just being intentional about what you pray for. And then also just making sure that you approach that with humility and with respect, and knowing that you are not the source, and that there is a source greater than you, and the source wants to connect with you and wants to I guess show itself to you in a more grand way, and sometimes our ego can stop us from experiencing it in that way. So make sure that you're very respectful. And then the second part of verse 45, it says that he came to the disciples and found them sleeping from sorrow. So basically prior to this, you know, he basically told the disciples, this is what's going to happen, this is what's about to go down, I'm going to get crucified. And basically it says that they were sleeping from sorrow. So I thought that this was very interesting, because I'm like, when I read it, I was like, okay, what are they like? What do they need to sleep from sorrow for? Because like, you ever have times where it's like when you are really going through it and you're like crying so much that it's like it just wears you out? And that's what I was thinking. I'm like, so they are worn out from sadness, you know, because of what they know is to come and what Jesus has told them is going to happen to him. And it says that they're sleeping from sorrow. So I thought that it was interesting, because I'm like, if Jesus ain't sleeping from sorrow, what do they need to be sleeping from sorrow for? Like, what are they, like, this is not going to happen to you. So what is going on? So I thought that it was interesting that it says that it's like life will continue to go on even if you're in the midst of your situation or your circumstance. Like, don't expect for the things or the people around you to, I think, don't expect and don't depend on the things around you or the people around you to be your strength, and that life will continue to go on, and that you can only find your strength in God. So you have to still be very intentional about that. And if you're continuing to expect for the things outside of you, meaning people, to help you to endure or to go through or to overcome whatever it is that you're in right now, then you will be disappointed pretty much. So just make sure that you're intentional about just tapping into the within. So that's what I get from verse 45. And then verse 46 says, and he said to them, why are you sleeping? Get up and pray that you may not fall into temptation. So I think that this is interesting that he said that, because everything that he said is so relatable to his current circumstance. You know, he's telling the disciples, get up and pray that you may not fall into temptation, when right now, because he knows, and he's, you know, basically got a sign and an answer to his request to God, that this is what's about to happen to him, and that is in God's will. I feel like, if anything, all the emotions that he's feeling, Jesus should be, I guess, the one that feels the pull of temptation around him, but he's telling them, get up so that you may not fall into temptation. And I think that it's just a clear sign that, again, the more that you operate in your flesh, the more that you operate in the desires of the flesh, the more that you operate from the outside in, the more that you will fall into temptation. And that temptation is always around you, in everything and in everyone. So that you have to make sure that you are continuously, you know, praying, and that you are very intentional about the amount of time that you spend in your spiritual work, to make sure that you are continued to be strengthened by God. So just make sure that you are, again, don't fall for the temptations around you, and it becomes easier and easier, and you're able to do more and to overcome more when you are very intentional about spending time with the source and just strengthening that part of you. So I just thought that it was just interesting that although he had received signs and messages, and you know, that he was about to endure something that's just horrible to even think of, that he was going to get betrayed by one of his disciples, and that he was going to get crucified, although he was doing the will of God. Like, knowing that you have been very intentional, knowing that you have stayed aligned, knowing that you have been humble and respectful, and knowing what's about to come to you, you should be the one that falls for the lure and the pull of temptation. But you are still spreading the gospel of God, saying you need to pray, you need to make sure that you are intentional, because those things are always going to be around you. But the more that you strengthen yourself in God and in your faith, the easier it'll be for you to kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for, to overcome those things, if that makes sense. So I think that verse 45 and 46 just kind of wraps everything up to just let us know that if you want to be, and if you want to have a closer relationship with God, you have to make sure that you spend time with God. You have to make sure that you spend time with the source. You have to come and approach it with humility and with respect. Don't allow your ego to make you feel like you are bigger than you are, because you're not. You are not the source. You are a part of the source, meaning that you're able to tap into the source at all times. But you have to maintain humble and respectful and grateful to the fact that we are able to have a connection, and we are able to have an intimate relationship with God. And just knowing that the more intentional that you are about spending time and the amount of time that you spend with God, the easier it'll be for you to kind of like get out of get out of the line of fire, I guess you can say. So the more that you're able to kind of like dodge all of the works and plans and plots of the enemy. So hopefully all of this ties into with you guys. Hopefully it resonates. Hopefully it helps to change your perspective. If it does, make sure that you give this video a thumbs up and make sure that you share it. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed these Bible studies. If you have, make sure that you leave your comments down below and let me know. And if you have specific scriptures that you want me to go ahead and do a Bible study on, make sure that you leave that in the comments as well. So thank you again. Be safe, stay blessed, and remember to always treat yourself. Peace out.